Welcome to Miss Scarlett. Subscribe and don't miss out on Patreon. Have fun! As the damp evening shrouded the countryside, the steady drum of raindrops accompanied him on his somber journey. Each droplet on the windshield mirrored the endless tears he'd shed. The funeral, a blur of mournful memories, revealed the cruel twist of fate that had altered his life irrevocably. Parallel caskets, a haunting reminder of the sudden loss, and he could still see the rain-drenched graveyard, the dark clouds mirroring his soul. His grip tightened on the wheel with every mile, knuckles turning pale, a visceral reminder of the tragic accident that had stolen his parents' lives. Yet the sting of grief was numbing. To be orphaned at 28 was a cruel twist of fate. A lifetime of companionship and guidance evaporated in an instant. A sudden electronic chirp interrupted the silence, the GPS alerting him of the approaching turn to Aunt Martha's haven, a place that, from that moment on, would be his sanctuary. A place visited only twice before, during childhood summers that felt like ancient history now.
"You've arrived at your destination,"
the robotic voice announced as the car rolled to a stop before a Victorian-style home nestled among sprawling oak trees. The 3-story structure loomed against the darkening sky, its wraparound porch illuminated by warm yellow light. Pulling the navy blue jacket tighter, there was a moment's hesitation before stepping out into the drizzle. Short blonde hair quickly dampened as bags were retrieved from the trunk. No turning back now. This was home for the foreseeable future. The doorbell's chime echoed inside. Footsteps approached, and the heavy wooden door swung open to reveal Aunt Martha, her silver hair swept up in an elegant bun, wearing a floral print dress and pearl earrings. "Kylan, my dear boy!" Her arms opened wide. "Come in from this dreadful weather at once!" The embrace was comforting, yet strange. They had exchanged only occasional holiday cards and obligatory birthday phone calls over the years. Now, circumstances had forced them together. "Thank you for having me, Aunt Martha." The words came out hoarse, emotions still raw. "Nonsense. Family takes care of family." She ushered him inside, the scent of lavender and baked goods filling the air. "I've prepared the east bedroom for you. It has the loveliest morning light." The interior of the house was just as remembered. Ornate Victorian furniture, antique lamps, and walls covered with framed photographs and paintings. Everything meticulously placed, not a speck of dust in sight. "I'm sure you're exhausted from your journey. Let's get you settled, and then we can discuss the arrangement over tea." The arrangement had been mentioned briefly during their phone conversation following the funeral. Aunt Martha had graciously offered her home indefinitely, mentioning only that she had certain house rules that would require adjustments on Kylan's part. After being shown to a spacious bedroom with floral wallpaper and a 4-poster bed, Kylan began unpacking while Aunt Martha prepared tea downstairs. The closet door stood open, revealing an unexpected sight. It was already filled with clothes. Women's clothes. "I see you've discovered your new wardrobe." Aunt Martha appeared in the doorway, carrying a silver tea tray. "Please, sit down. We need to discuss my house rule." Rule, singular. That seemed simple enough. They sat in matching armchairs by the window as Aunt Martha poured fragrant tea into delicate porcelain cups.
"My dear, I know this arrangement is born of tragedy, and I wish the circumstances were different."
She handed him a cup. "However, I've lived alone for many years and have established certain ways that bring me comfort and order." Kylan nodded, waiting for elaboration on what surely would be requests about cleaning up after himself or respecting quiet hours.
In this house, all males dress as females. No exceptions.
The teacup froze halfway to his lips.
I'm sorry. What?
You heard correctly. Her tone was matter-of-fact, as if she'd just commented on the weather. Since your Uncle Herbert passed 15 years ago, I've maintained this rule for any male visitors or residents. It's non-negotiable. A nervous laugh escaped. That's a joke, right? I assure you, it is not. Her expression remained serene, unwavering. Your closet has been stocked with appropriate attire in what I believe to be your size. Shoes are in the bottom drawers, and undergarments in the top. Aunt Martha, I can't. You can and you will if you wish to stay here. She set her cup down with a gentle clink. I understand this seems unusual, but I've found that men behave much better when dressed as women. More gentle, more thoughtful, more tidy. Words failed as the absurdity of the situation sank in. With no job lined up yet in this small town, and savings rapidly dwindling after the funeral expenses, options were limited.
I need time to think about this.
Of course. She stood, smoothing her dress. Take tonight to consider. Tomorrow morning you'll either come down to breakfast appropriately dressed, or you'll need to make other arrangements. She paused at the door. I hope you choose to stay, Kylan. I could use the company, and you need family now more than ever. That night, sleep proved elusive. The choices were stark. Swallow pride and don women's clothing, or face financial ruin trying to secure housing and employment simultaneously with no support system. Morning light filtered through lace curtains as Kylan stared at the closet. With a deep breath and resignation, the navy blue outfit was set aside and the closet door opened wider. A sundress in pale yellow caught the eye first. Too bold. Eventually, a simple knee-length black skirt and white blouse seemed the least offensive options. The undergarments were another matter entirely, but necessity dictated compliance. After an awkward struggle with unfamiliar clasps and straps, Kylan examined the reflection in the full-length mirror. The person staring back was a stranger. Blonde hair too short to frame the face femininely, shoulders too broad for the blouse, legs unshaven beneath dark tights hastily pulled on.
This is temporary,
came the whispered reassurance.
Just until I find a job and my own place.
Breakfast proved less mortifying than anticipated, as Aunt Martha made no comment on the outfit, simply nodding approvingly as she served French toast and coffee. I've taken the liberty of scheduling an appointment at my salon this afternoon, she mentioned casually. Eleanor will help with your hair and provide some basic cosmetic instruction. That's not necessary. I insist. If we're to do this, we'll do it properly. The following weeks blurred together in a surreal haze. Eleanor, the 60-something salon owner, had clucked and fussed over Kylan's appearance, teaching basic makeup application and attaching modest blonde hair extensions that matched his natural color. These will help until your own hair grows out, she'd explained, as if male-to-female transformation were the most natural thing in the world. Daily life took on a strange routine. Mornings spent job hunting online while adjusting to wearing pale pink cardigans and floral print dresses. Afternoons helping Aunt Martha with gardening or errands, learning to navigate public spaces in increasingly comfortable low heels. Evenings spent reading or watching television, gradually becoming accustomed to the feel of silky nightgowns against skin. You need a proper name, Aunt Martha declared one evening, exactly 4 weeks after Kylan's arrival. Something feminine that suits you. I don't think What about Nyla? It has a lovely ring to it, and you look like a Nyla. The protest died unspoken. Fighting these battles had grown exhausting, and somewhere along the way, the outrage had faded into resigned acceptance. The name didn't sound terrible. Fine. Nyla, it is. Excellent. Aunt Martha beamed. Nyla it shall be, from now on. The transformation continued in subtle ways. Daily makeup application became less of a chore and more of a skill to master. Walking in heels no longer required conscious thought. Handling the swish of skirts and dresses became second nature. Even the weight of the growing hair, now supplemented by fewer extensions as natural growth progressed, felt almost normal against the nape of the neck. 2 months into the stay, Aunt Martha's prediction came true. A job offer arrived from the local library, secured partly through her connections with the head librarian. They're expecting Nyla, of course, she mentioned over dinner. I explained your situation, that you're transitioning, and Margaret is quite progressive for her age.
You told them what?
The fork clattered against the plate. Well, I could hardly explain my house rule, could I? This explanation was simpler and ensures you won't face uncomfortable questions. That night brought a crisis of identity while staring at the ceiling. What had started as a bizarre accommodation had somehow become comfortable. The soft fabrics against skin, the freedom from masculine expectations, the way people, especially women, interacted more openly, more warmly. When had reluctance transformed into something else entirely? The library job began the following Monday. Nyla chose a conservative navy blue pencil skirt and cream blouse with a matching cardigan. Margaret, the head librarian, was warm and welcoming, introducing her to the small staff without a hint of judgment.
We're so pleased to have you with us, Nyla. Cataloging is detailed work, but I think you'll find it rewarding.
And surprisingly, it was. The quiet, methodical nature of the work suited well, and the predominantly female staff created an environment of acceptance that hadn't been experienced in previous workplaces. By the end of summer, the extensions were gone, replaced by naturally grown blonde hair that softly framed the face. The makeup routine had been refined to enhance features rather than mask them. The wardrobe had expanded beyond Aunt Martha's initial selections to include personally chosen pieces, a teal dress that brought out newly noticed green flecks in hazel eyes, comfortable yet feminine flats for work days, and even a few pairs of earrings for simple silver studs that had required a momentary wince at the piercing gun. One evening in early September, while helping prepare dinner, Aunt Martha asked the question that had been hovering unspoken between them.
Are you happy, Nyla?
The knife paused over the carrot being chopped. Yes. I think I am. And does that surprise you? Enormously. The admission came easier than expected. I never thought this wasn't something I ever considered before. Sometimes we don't know who we truly are until circumstances force us to explore beyond our comfortable boundaries. She squeezed a shoulder gently. You've blossomed, my dear. I've watched it happen day by day. That night brought introspection deeper than any before. The person who had arrived at Aunt Martha's doorstep in navy blue men's clothes and short hair had been, what? Incomplete? Uncomfortable without recognizing it? The revelation wasn't sudden, but rather a gradual awareness that had been building for months. The next morning, Nyla made a decision. After work, instead of returning directly home, a detour led to Dr. Westfield's office, a name discreetly obtained from Eleanor after a careful conversation at the salon. The doctor, a compassionate woman in her 50s, listened without judgment as Nyla explained the unusual circumstances that had led to the current situation. "And how do you feel about continuing to live as a woman?" she asked after hearing the full story. I think I want to. Not because of Aunt Martha's rule anymore, but because it feels right." The words, once spoken aloud, carried a weight of truth that couldn't be denied. "I've never felt more comfortable in my own skin." Dr. Westfield nodded. "What you're describing is consistent with gender dysphoria that wasn't recognized until circumstances allowed you to experience life differently. It's not uncommon for people to discover their true gender identity later in life." She provided resources, information about hormone therapy options, and referrals to specialized therapists. "This is a journey, not a destination. Take your time, but trust your feelings." That evening, sitting across from Aunt Martha in the garden, the conversation that had been building all day finally emerged. "I want to thank you," Nyla began, fingers nervously tracing the pattern on the light blue sundress she wore. "Whatever for, dear?" "Your rule. It seemed cruel at first. Humiliating. But now I realize it gave me permission to discover something about myself I might never have otherwise found." Aunt Martha's smile was gentle. "I suspected as much. Not initially, of course. But I've watched you these past months. The way you've changed goes beyond adapting to clothing. You've found yourself." "I saw Dr. Westfield today about making this permanent, about transitioning medically." "And how did that make you feel?" "Terrified, excited, like I'm finally being honest with myself." Aunt Martha reached across and took her hand. "Then you have my full support, Nyla. And you have a home here for as long as you need or want it." Tears welled up unexpectedly. "Can I ask you something? Why do you really have that rule? I don't believe it's just about making men better behaved." A shadow crossed Aunt Martha's face as she gazed toward the setting sun. "Your father never told you about your Uncle Herbert, did he? About who he truly was?" "Only that he died 15 years ago. Heart attack, I thought." "Herbert wasn't just my husband in the conventional sense. He lived as Helena for the last decade of our marriage. We were blissfully happy once she embraced her true self." Her voice softened. "The heart attack came just 2 years after her full transition. My rule, it's partly in her honor and partly because I've seen firsthand how clothing can be the first step toward authenticity for some people." The revelation stunned Nyla into silence. All this time, there had been this connection, this family history she'd never known. Why didn't anyone tell me? "Your father didn't approve. He cut contact with us when Herbert became Helena. That's why you only visited those 2 summers as a child." Aunt Martha's fingers tightened around Nyla's. "When I heard about the accident and knew you needed someplace to go, I wondered if perhaps there was more of Helena in your family line than anyone had recognized." The autumn leaves had begun to change by the time Nyla started hormone therapy. The initial physical changes were subtle, softening skin, slight shifts in fat distribution, but the emotional sense of rightness grew stronger each day. The library proved an unexpected blessing. Margaret championed her transition openly, ensuring colleagues used proper pronouns and creating an environment where Nyla could discuss her journey when she chose to. The patrons, for the most part, either didn't notice or were politely accepting of the gradually changing appearance of the quiet blonde woman who helped them find books or use the computer catalog. As winter approached, Nyla found herself curled up in the window seat of Aunt Martha's living room, watching the first snowflakes of the season drift past the glass. She wore a comfortable cream-colored sweater dress and leggings, her growing blonde hair now falling past her shoulders. "I've been thinking," Aunt Martha said, entering with 2 mugs of hot chocolate, "about your lease." "My lease?" "The informal one. When you arrived, you made it clear this was temporary until you found your own place." A flush of panic rose. "Are you asking me to leave?" "Quite the opposite." Aunt Martha settled into her favorite armchair. "I'm asking if you'd consider making this arrangement permanent. This old house is too large for just me, and I've grown accustomed to your company." Relief washed through her. "I'd like that very much." "Wonderful." Aunt Martha's smile was warm. "Then we should discuss renovating the East Wing. If you're to stay permanently, you deserve more than just a bedroom, perhaps a sitting room of your own, and that smaller room would make a lovely dressing area." The gesture brought unexpected tears. "Why are you so good to me?"
"Because family supports family, Nyla. The real kind of family, not the kind that rejects those who don't conform to their narrow expectations."
As the holiday season approached, Nyla faced another milestone, her first Christmas as her authentic self. Aunt Martha insisted on hosting a small dinner party with a few close friends, including Margaret from the library and Eleanor from the salon. "You need to build your own circle," she explained while they decorated the tree. "People who know and accept the real you." Shopping for a holiday dress became an unexpectedly emotional experience. Standing in the department store dressing room, Nyla twirled slowly in a deep green velvet dress with 3/4 sleeves and a modest neckline. "That's stunning on you," the saleswoman commented. "The color really brings out your eyes, and it complements your hair beautifully." "Thank you." The words came naturally now, the compliment received without the awkwardness that had characterized early shopping trips. "I think this is the one." Christmas Eve dinner was filled with laughter and warmth. Sitting at the elegantly set table in her green velvet dress, hair styled in soft waves, Nyla looked around at the small gathering of people who had become her support system and felt a profound sense of belonging. Margaret raised her glass in a toast. "To new beginnings and authentic lives." "To family," Eleanor added, "both born and chosen." "To Helena," Aunt Martha said softly, "who showed me that love transcends gender, and to Nyla, who reminds me daily of her courage." The warmth of their acceptance wrapped around her like a blanket. After the guests departed and the dishes were washed, Aunt Martha presented Nyla with a small, elegantly wrapped package. "I usually save gifts for the morning, but this one seems appropriate for tonight." Inside the box lay a delicate silver locket. When opened, it revealed a tiny photograph of a smiling woman with kind eyes.
"Helena,"
Aunt Martha explained, her voice thick with emotion. "I thought you might like to have her close to your heart as you continue your journey." Nyla fastened the locket around her neck with trembling fingers. "Thank you for everything."
"She would have been so proud of you, my dear. As am I."
The new year brought fresh challenges and triumphs. Hormone therapy continued to work its gradual magic. Voice training with a specialist 2 towns over helped develop a more naturally feminine pitch and resonance. The legal process of name change began, with Aunt Martha accompanying her to appointments with lawyers and court officials. By spring, the paperwork was complete. Kylan officially became Nyla in the eyes of the law, with new identification documents arriving in a plain manila envelope that contained the external validation of her internal truth. The East Wing renovation finished in early May, providing Nyla with a charming suite of rooms that reflected her emerging personal style. Clean lines, warm colors, and touches of vintage elegance that complemented yet distinguished from Aunt Martha's more ornate Victorian preferences. A year to the day after arriving at Aunt Martha's doorstep, Nyla stood in front of her full-length mirror, taking inventory of the changes. The navy blue men's outfit was long gone, donated months ago. In its place stood a confident woman in a light blue sundress that swished pleasantly around her knees. Blonde hair fell in soft layers around a face that had subtly changed. Features softened by hormones, expressions no longer guarded, but open. Admiring your handiwork? Aunt Martha appeared in the doorway, eyes twinkling. Reflecting, more like. Nyla turned to face her aunt. I was just thinking about that first morning when I came downstairs in that awful black skirt and white blouse, feeling like the biggest fraud in the world. And now? Now I know I was the fraud before. Living someone else's life, never understanding why nothing felt quite right. She smoothed the fabric of her dress. I never thanked you properly, you know, for your ridiculous rule that saved my life. Aunt Martha chuckled. I prefer to think of it as divinely inspired eccentricity. Does it ever bother you that your rule has become obsolete in my case? I'm no longer a man living as a woman under your roof. I'm just a woman. My dear Nyla. Aunt Martha crossed the room and took her hands. That was always the point. The rule exists to create possibility, not limitation. For some who visit, it remains merely an unusual requirement they tolerate briefly. For others, like you and Helena, it opens a door to authenticity. That evening, they sat together on the porch swing, watching fireflies begin their nightly dance over the garden. A gentle breeze carried the scent of roses and freshly cut grass. I've been thinking about the future, Nyla said, breaking the comfortable silence. Oh? I'd like to start a support group in town for others who might be questioning their gender identity but don't have an Aunt Martha to help them through it. The older woman smiled. That sounds wonderful. The community center might have space available. I thought I might also look into going back to school, online courses to finish my degree. In literature? You always did have your nose in a book. Actually, I was thinking about psychology, with a focus on gender issues. She twisted the silver locket between her fingers. I want to help others the way Dr. Westfield helped me. Helena would have loved that. Aunt Martha patted her knee. She always said that our struggles gain meaning when we use them to ease another's path. As darkness fell fully, they moved inside. Nyla paused at the entry to what had once been a strange and intimidating house, but had become, unquestionably, home. A penny for your thoughts? Aunt Martha asked, noticing her hesitation. I was just thinking about what would have happened if I'd chosen differently that first morning. If I'd walked away rather than put on that skirt. And what do you think would have happened? I'd still be lost, living someone else's life, never knowing who I truly was meant to be. Aunt Martha nodded sagely. Some of life's greatest gifts come wrapped in the most unexpected packages, my dear. Sometimes literally. Nyla laughed, the sound genuine and free. A floral dress and pink cardigan, in my case. Precisely. Aunt Martha looped her arm through Nyla's as they walked toward the kitchen. Now, how about some tea before bed? We can discuss your support group idea. I think Margaret might know someone on the community board who could help. As they settled at the kitchen table with steaming cups, Nyla felt a deep sense of gratitude wash over her. The journey had been unexpected, the destination unplanned, but for the first time in memory, her external reality matched her internal truth. The reflection in the mirror finally showed the person she was always meant to be. "To authentic lives," she said, raising her teacup in an echo of Margaret's Christmas toast. "And to the courage to live them," Aunt Martha responded, clinking her cup gently against Nyla's. Outside, the fireflies continued their dance, tiny lights of hope illuminating the darkness, just as Nyla's discovery of her true self had illuminated what had once seemed an impenetrable shadow. The path forward wasn't without challenges, but it was unquestionably her own, and she would walk it with confidence, one step at a time, in shoes that finally fit just right.
Thanks for watching, my girlies! Be sure to check out Patreon for more!